3 days ago, someone uploaded one video with 0 FaceTime, 0 recorded voice, and $0 spent, and it made $157 off 1,000 views. The niche behind it can pay over $300 per 1,000 views. Here's the method. Let's actually break down why this works, because the number itself sounds fake until you see the logic behind it. Ad rates on YouTube aren't flat. They shift hard depending on 3 separate factors stacked on top of each other, and almost nobody stacks all 3 at once. Most creators get lucky on one factor and leave the other 2 completely on the table. First, which country is actually watching? Most people assume the US pays the most, and it's true, American ad rates run high, typically somewhere between $8 and $18 per 1,000 views. But Germany quietly beats that, averaging somewhere between $10 and $20. And that's before you've even picked a niche yet. That's just the baseline rate for completely generic content in that country. Second, which topic advertisers are desperate to get in front of people? Finance and investing sits at the top of that list every single time, because advertisers in that space know their audience has money and intent to spend it, which means they're willing to bid aggressively just to get a few seconds of attention from the right viewer. Third, which age group advertisers actually chase hardest? Not teenagers, not 20-somethings, people 45 and up, since that age group tends to have more disposable income, makes bigger financial decisions, and generally trusts advertising more than a younger, more skeptical audience that's grown up actively tuning ads out. Stack those 3 answers on top of each other and you land somewhere very specific. German language content about finance aimed at an older audience. Push that one step further into something concrete and you get retirement content in German. It hits all 3 boxes at once. And here's where the number gets genuinely wild. This specific niche can post a CPM north of $300 per 1,000 views. That's not a typo and it's not an outlier headline either. It's just what happens when 3 separate high-paying factors stack instead of competing with each other. The actual documented example behind this, a CPM of $38 translating into an RPM of $157 per 1,000 views, real revenue, not the theoretical ceiling. Search this niche on YouTube yourself and you'll notice something else immediately. Channels pulling serious view counts while sitting on a tiny subscriber base. That mismatch is the same signal worth paying attention to in any niche, low competition, relative to how well the content performs once it's actually posted. Here's the part that trips most people up before they even get started though. They hear German finance content and assume they need to learn German first, or hire a German scriptwriter, or find a German voice actor. None of that is actually necessary, and spending time trying to solve a problem that AI already solves for free is exactly how people talk themselves out of a niche like this before ever posting a single video. You genuinely do not need to speak, read, or understand a word of the target language to build this entire channel start to finish, which sounds almost too convenient until you actually walk through the process and realize every single language-dependent step has a tool sitting right in front of it. And here's the mistake that quietly kills most attempts at this specific format, even among people who do get the niche right. They generate a script by asking an AI model to just write the whole thing from scratch. It sounds like the obvious move, and it's exactly why so many of these channels get low retention and never take off. A script written entirely from a blank prompt tends to ramble, repeat itself, and lack the actual structure that keeps someone watching for 8 or 10 minutes straight, because the model has nothing real to anchor the information to beyond its own general knowledge. Here's the fix almost nobody's talking about. Find a well-ranking blog post on the exact topic in English, translate it into German, and use that as your script's backbone instead. If a piece of writing is already good enough to rank on Google, it's already proven it can hold attention and deliver real information efficiently, which gives your video a real shot at ranking on YouTube too, instead of just sounding like generic AI filler dressed up in a different language. Alright, here's the full build step by step. Step 1. Set up your channel properly. And don't skip the boring parts, because these are exactly the details that quietly decide whether YouTube ever recommends your videos at all. Use a business name generator. Feed it your core keyword, something like retirement lifestyle in your target country, and let it spit out a batch of creative options until one feels memorable and on brand, since a forgettable generic name makes your channel harder to search for later even after people already know it exists. For your logo, Ask an AI writing tool for a detailed logo prompt built around your channel name and topic. Then take that prompt to a free AI image generator, square dimensions, and generate until something looks right. Pull pieces from that same generated art into a simple banner using a design tool's built-in YouTube banner template so your logo and banner feel like they belong to the same channel instead of two unrelated pieces of art. Upload both to your channel through the Studio dashboard and take a moment to actually look at how it displays before moving on, since a banner cropped wrong across devices is an easy thing to miss until a viewer points it out in the comments. Step 2. Get your description and tags right from day one, since this is what actually helps the platform understand who your content is for. Use a dedicated prompt to generate a description that reads naturally instead of sounding obviously AI written. Telling the tool specifically to write like a platform optimization expert rather than just summarizing your video, paste it in, and do the same for your tags. In your channel settings, set your country of residence to match your target audience's country specifically, since that single setting quietly influences who your content gets shown to and how it gets categorized behind the scene. Before you post anything at all, go verify every monetization eligibility feature your platform offers, phone verification, identity verification, whatever applies, because posting before these are active just wastes your first video's early momentum window, and there's no way to get that specific window back once it's passed. Step 3. Find your topic the right way. Use a dedicated idea generation prompt to get a batch of high-value topic options in your chosen niche, then pick the one that feels strongest. But stop right there. Don't ask the same tool to just write your full script next. Step 4. Go find your script's real backbone instead. Search that exact topic in English on Google, since search results in your own language are obviously easier to evaluate, and open several of the top-ranking blog posts in new tabs. You're looking for a genuinely long one, long enough to support a full-length video rather than a thin, surface-level article that barely scratches the topic. Copy the full text into a character counting tool, and if it clears somewhere around 8,000 characters, that's roughly enough material for an 8-minute video, which tends to be a sweet spot length for this style. Long enough for the platform to favor it in recommendations, short enough that pacing never drags. If the first blog you find comes up short, don't force it. Just check a second or third one instead, since a thin source article produces a thin, padded script, no matter how good the rest of your process is. Step 5. Turn that raw blog text into an actual script. Use a dedicated organizing prompt. Paste in the full blog post, title included, and let it restructure the material into a proper script, complete with a real hook at the top instead of just a wall of repurposed text, read out loud in order. In that same conversation, immediately ask for a full translation into your target language, since keeping it in the same thread preserves context and keeps the tone consistent between the English organizing pass and the translated version, rather than starting a fresh chat that has to re-infer your intent from scratch. Move the finished script into a clean document, strip out any leftover labels, headers, or formatting notes that would sound strange if read aloud, and save it, since you'll need a completely clean text file for the next step. And any stray label left in there will end up spoken by your voiceover if you're not careful. Step 6. Generate your voiceover. Head to a voice platform, filter specifically for voices in your target language, and preview a handful until you find one that actually fits your channel's tone rather than grabbing the first result the filter returns. A warm, trustworthy sounding voice matters more in this niche than in most, since you're speaking to an older audience about their finances, and a voice that sounds rushed or overly synthetic will quietly undercut the trust you're trying to build. Use the long-form audio generation feature built for exactly this kind of longer script. Rather than the quick preview tool, upload your clean script file and double-check the title line gets removed before you generate, since you only want the actual script spoken aloud, not a stray header read out at the start. Export the finished file, and you'll have a full, natural-sounding, native language voiceover running well past the 10-minute mark without you ever having to speak a single word yourself or understand a word of what's being said. Step 7. Generate your visuals. Head back to the same script conversation and ask for image prompts based on the script, roughly 2 images per minute of runtime, and tell it your total video length so it can calculate the right count for you. 20 prompts for a 10-minute video, for example, rather than guessing at the number yourself and coming up short halfway through editing. Take those prompts to your image generator, switch your dimensions to a widescreen video ratio instead of the square format you use for your logo, and set the model to something aimed at realistic, cinematic output rather than a stylized default. Since a mismatched, cartoonish visual style tends to undercut the seriousness this niche needs to hold an older, finance-minded audience's trust. Most generators return several options per prompt. So for each roughly 30-second chunk of your video, pick 2 or 3 of the strongest results, instead of settling for the first one that comes back, which keeps the visual pacing varied instead of monotonous across a 10-minute runtime. Step 8. Edit everything together. Open your editor, drag your voiceover onto the timeline first, then drop your images in one at a time, adjusting the timing of each so it roughly matches the section of narration it belongs to. Even without understanding the words, you can usually feel the natural rhythm of the sentences well enough to place cuts reasonably close. Add a simple transition between each image and apply it across the whole timeline at once, instead of manually setting it every single time, which saves a genuinely significant amount of time on a video with this many separate images stacked back to back. A little subtle motion on top, a gentle ripple, or a soft vignette adds a cinematic feel without turning the video into a distracting mess that pulls attention away from the actual content. Generate captions in your target language directly inside your editor, pick a clean template, and adjust the color and sizing so it matches your channel's overall look instead of using whatever default style the software ships with. Drop in a calm background track underneath everything, search for something close to your target runtime so you're not manually looping a short clip over and over, and pull the volume down significantly so it supports the voiceover instead of competing with it for the viewer's attention. Real quick before I get into the actual results, a few things matter more than the rest here. Never let an AI model write your full script from a blank prompt. Use it to organize and translate a genuinely good source article instead, since that's the entire difference between a video that holds attention and one that quietly gets skipped. Never post your first video before every monetization eligibility feature is fully verified and active, since that single oversight can cost you the early momentum a new channel only gets once. Never promote your content in spaces where the audience doesn't speak your target language, since it inflates your view count with people who click away almost instantly and quietly tanks the exact retention signal the algorithm is watching most closely. And treat the character count check on your source blog as non-negotiable. A script that's too thin gets padded and rambly, and a script pulled from something already proven to hold a reader's attention rarely has that problem. Step 9. Build your thumbnail from material you already have. Pull 3 of your strongest generated images instead of creating anything new from scratch, since you've already got a full set of cinematic visuals sitting in your project folder that took real effort to generate. Since you likely can't read the language your video is in, ask the same chat thread that wrote your script for a strong, attention-grabbing title, then ask it again specifically for the single strongest keyword to feature on the thumbnail itself. The one word or short phrase that would actually make someone in your target language stop scrolling. Drop your chosen image into a design tool. Add that keyword in a bold, high-contrast font. Use an expand feature if the image doesn't leave enough room for text without looking cramped, and add a subtle shadow behind the text so it stays readable against busy backgrounds. Repeat this with your other 2 strongest images so you walk into upload with 3 genuinely different thumbnail options instead of just one guess you're hoping lands. Step 10. Optimize your upload for real discovery, not just for getting the video live. Use the exact title your script conversation generated, and repeat that same title as the very first line of your description, since that repetition genuinely helps with ranking and signals to the platform exactly what the video is about right away. Run your title through a dedicated description-generating prompt to produce a keyword-rich description built specifically for your target language audience, rather than a generic summary that could apply to any video on the topic. For tags, a tag generation tool fed your title works well. Just clean out anything irrelevant like stray year numbers before pasting the final set into your upload settings, since a tag list cluttered with junk dilutes the relevant ones sitting right next to them. Set your video's specific language in the upload settings to match your content, since this single field affects who the platform considers a relevant audience for recommendations. And if your platform offers built-in thumbnail testing, Upload all 3 of your thumbnail options there and let the system determine which one actually performs best with real viewers, instead of guessing yourself based on which one you personally like most. Step 11. Treat your posting schedule and audience targeting as part of the strategy, not an afterthought. Leave roughly 2 to 3 days between uploads rather than posting daily, since platforms typically take a day or two just to start meaningfully recommending a new video. And stacking uploads on top of that discovery window just splits your own early momentum against itself, instead of letting each video build real traction before the next one arrives. And resist the urge to promote your video anywhere the audience doesn't actually speak your target language. A burst of curious clicks from people who bounce in the first few seconds does real damage to your retention metrics, the exact signal that decides whether the algorithm keeps pushing your content afterward. It might feel counterintuitive to turn down easy extra views from a broader, unrelated audience, but those views actively work against you here, dragging your average view duration down and teaching the algorithm that your content doesn't hold attention when the actual problem is simply that it was shown to the wrong people in the first place. So here's the actual number this entire method is built around. One video, 3 days old, 1,000 views, and $157 in real revenue, off a CPM of $38 in a niche capable of running north of 300. That's not a projection or a best case scenario. That's what one properly targeted, properly produced video in this exact niche actually pulled in before it had even been live a full week. To put that in perspective, plenty of creators in broad English language niches need 10, 20, sometimes 50 times that many views just to see similar revenue. Because they're competing for ad dollars in a category where the CPM sits in the low single digits, instead of stacking 3 separate high-paying factors on top of each other the way this niche does. Run that same math against a channel posting consistently every few days instead of just once, and you can see fairly quickly why a handful of creators are quietly sitting in this specific corner of YouTube instead of competing in an oversaturated English language niche with a fraction of the payout per view. None of this requires the channel to go viral either. 1,000 views is a genuinely modest number for a new upload, which is exactly what makes the revenue per view here worth paying attention to instead of chasing raw view count in a lower paying niche. And one more thing worth knowing before you commit to a single language. Germany and retirement finance happen to be the specific combination that produced the number driving this whole video. But the actual method, stack the highest paying country, the highest paying topic, and the audience advertisers chase hardest, isn't locked to German at all. Run that same 3-question framework against a handful of other high CPM countries, and you'll likely find other genuinely underexplored combinations, since almost nobody else is deliberately stacking all 3 factors either. Most creators are still picking a language based on what they personally speak instead of what actually pays. If you're serious about actually building one of these instead of just watching the numbers go by, don't skip the setup steps to rush toward posting, the branding, the verification. The country settings all quietly compound over your channel's entire lifetime, and fixing them after the fact costs far more time than doing them properly once at the start. Get one full video through this exact process, end-to-end, blog to script, script to voice, voice to visuals, before you even think about a posting schedule or a second video. Drop the country and niche combination you're considering down in the comments. I read every one, and if enough of you want it, I'll run this exact process again from scratch on a completely different high CPM language next. Mistakes included? No cutting around the parts that take longer than expected. The gap between English language creators fighting over pennies and a handful of people quietly running this exact playbook in a language they don't even speak isn't talent, it's just knowing where to actually look. And now you do too.